I'm talking today to Erik Cornish. Erik is a financial healer. Hi, Erik. Thank you so much for letting me interview you for Askimo TV's International Library of Interviews with Experts.
Now, hi, Joanne. It's a joy to be talking to you today. Thank you for thinking of me.
Wonderful. Erik, today we're going to be talking about financial stress management. So let's start off with, why has there been such an increase in financial stress and stress in general worldwide?
This is very much due to the financial systems we have in place at the moment. We have a global banking system that's geared to extracting as much profit from people as possible. The multi-corporate companies, they're doing the same thing. Everyone's trying to take as much money as they can out of the individual. And everyone's getting very stressed financially. There's a lot of uncertainty now. We no longer have jobs for life the way we did when I left school in 1969. That concept's completely gone. So there's uncertainty about employment. There's uncertainty about the future and how this is all going to pan out for people. And there's a constant threat of losing your job. Interest rates are eternally getting higher, it seems, especially for the unsecured market. And people are just struggling to make ends meet, just paying for basics. That seems to be the root of the problem.
How can people deal with financial stress in a healthy way?
Well, there are a lot of aspects to this. There are key lifestyle choices. Obviously, it helps enormously for people who are regularly exercising, eating a good diet, and meditating as a general lifestyle choice. Specifically within the financial world, to be financially fit and healthy makes a lot of sense as well, which means regularly looking at the bank statements, doing an analysis every month of what you're actually spending your money on, looking at what you need to be spending your money on. We find a lot of people, they've got old life assurance policies going back for years relating to mortgages which have long since gone. We find a lot of people here, certainly in the UK, if you get a mortgage from a bank or building society, they would also sell you a lot of insurance products alongside it, which are usually the most expensive on the market, and make them a lot of commission, but aren't very good value for the client. So we always recommend a sort of financial fitness test just to see exactly where you are now. The problem comes is that as the stresses start to mount, people stop opening the envelopes because they're worried about their financial situation. And that starts a downward spiral of stress around debt, which what I'm trying to do here is to stop that spiral and start saying, okay, well, how do we address this now and move forward in a positive manner?
What strategies do you have for people in trying to stop the cycle of debt? What's the first step in the process?
To see exactly where you are. People fall broadly into two types, the highly positive and the highly negative. And the highly positive think it's going to get better and keep ploughing further into debt, borrowing more money to pay off the existing debts, and end up with payday loans at 4,000% APR, which are totally unsustainable. And the more depressed people are and the more worried they are, they think they don't want to open the envelopes to see exactly where they are. So if you don't know exactly what the situation is, it's very hard to say. I've had some people who've actually got no debt at all, but are worried they might get debt one day and have gone into deep stress about what might happen. And others say, well, I've got £100,000 worth of credit card debt, but it's unsecured, it's their problem, they can do what they like, they can't get the house. Which is all very well for them, but very often the wife's at home getting the telephone calls and the bailiffs coming to the door and having to deal with the problem. So we have to look at the overall situation and how, either individually or as a couple, they're going to deal with what's going on and how to change direction, to go off in a direction that won't make the debt issue bigger.
Do you believe in having a budget? Can this help reduce stress, and why?
Yeah, it does. It's absolutely essential. For a start, it tells you exactly where you are and what's happening. And then every month, as the bank statements arrive, you can actually set up a set of accounts. You need to have your basic account to pay the bills, your contingency fund for the rainy day money for when the car goes wrong or something drastic happens, and a fun money pot. And every month, the joy of opening the bank statements should be to find out how much money you can put into the fun money pot, which is going to pay for the holidays and the Christmas presents and the nice things in life. So you need to be able to do that. Now, if you get to the point where you're not even able to fund the day-to-day expenses, the rent, the rates, the utility bills, food and whatever, and you're having to borrow more money every month, that's the first warning sign. And once these warning signs start to flash, you need to be taking action very quickly because things do spiral down very, very fast, especially with the emotional stresses around debt.
Now, Erik, you call yourself the financial healer. Tell me a little bit about how you work with your clients and how you bring EFT and matrix re-imprinting into the work that you do.
Yeah, I've spent 40 years working in finance, so I know about the issues around finances and what happens when they go wrong. And what happened was in 1999, my wife died of cancer, and as part of that journey we went on, we got into the wonderful world of complementary healing. And originally I thought, some of the people in this world are pretty crazy people. They were saying things like, you've got to talk to your tumour. And I thought, no, I don't want to talk to it. I want to rip its head off. I don't want to talk to it. But eventually, we started talking to the clients they'd had, and people with cancer had been doing these complementary healing therapies. And they were having very powerful experiences in learning how their cancer journey had been affected by doing this energy work. So I started researching around it, and you get back into Einstein saying, all matter is energy, and the universe exists in an energy matrix. And then starting to work with these energy healing tools, and especially the work of Gary Craig, who invented EFT, and I've gone, Joanne.
I'm here.
Sorry, my screen's gone blank.
Just
Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and what happened was the concept of EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, started with Gary Craig around 2000 in the States. And he started tapping on the energy meridians that the acupuncturists use. And these have been known about for over 5,000 years, so this is nothing new. But the idea of actually tapping on these energy points rather than sticking pins in them makes it a lot more acceptable to a lot of people. And we find that the stresses that are stored up in the nervous system can actually be released using this EFT technique. And there has been a lot of research done recently in the States working with guys who were Vietnam vets. And these blokes have been over 40 years in deep stress. And using this EFT technique, they have come off medication. They're outside of the definition of post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's really helping them to get their lives together and actually look forward to having a life rather than just lying there, drugged out their brains with stuff to keep them calm, and having a trauma. If a car backfires or there's a loud noise or whatever, something happens like that, we're getting upset. So I thought, okay, if I can develop this technique to work with people with financial stress, this is really going to help get them through a major financial trauma and basically turn a financial crisis into a new dimension in their lives. They can go off in a totally new direction. One of the problems we've got within the human system is that we tend to repeat our behaviour patterns. So if we don't get to the healing distress, it'll repeat itself. It'll go back again and again. I'm sure we all know people who've been in bad relationships with bad people, and they finally get out of it, and 6 months later, what do? They go back and find another one and do exactly the same thing again. And what I try and do with the Financial Healer brand is to say, okay, you're in a mess now. Let's get back to the roots. And what happens here is that we use the EFT tapping technique. We take the stress out of the immediate situation. We actually deal financially with what needs to be dealt with. But then we go back to, well, what was happening in childhood? What were your parents' ideas around money? And we start diving into, okay, where were the traumas? What was going on? People have said stuff like, when they were 3 or 4 years old, they can remember their parents saying, we wish we'd never had that kid. We could have gone on holiday if we hadn't had that kid. This is major trauma for a small person. And these traumas stay locked in the nervous system and play themselves out through the years in relationships or in finance or whatever. And the matrix re-imprinting technique is basically EFT in a time machine. So you take the EFT tapping technique and you go back down the younger years. The interesting thing comes by the time you get to a 3 or 4 year old who's feeling a trauma about being shouted at or parents shouting at each other about money, they can start remembering back into the womb and sometimes beyond. And this is where it can get quite exciting. The most recent client I worked with got back to this point, and she said in the womb she was aware her parents didn't want her. And she's actually spent the last 40 years since she was born trying to justify her existence to her parents in various ways. And we can heal these traumas, and we can heal them at a very profound level. And at each moment that we do a major re-imprint of a traumatic situation in the younger years, we also ask the highest possible future self for this lifetime just to come into the scene that we've created there and tell us about what can be done with this lifetime now that we've healed this trauma. What direction can we go in that we never dared to go and never thought we were worthy of going in? And then we go back into left brain mode and put together the business plan to get them to where they want to go. So it's a pretty comprehensive package.
Thank you, Erik. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Well,